Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone out there. I am Tyrone Smith, three-time Olympian in track and field for Bermuda, national record holder in the long jump, and have the privilege of speaking with our Paris-bound triathlete Tyler Smith today. Tyler, how you doing?
Yeah, I think it's me that has the privilege to chat to you. One of our most kind of decorated Olympians in recent years, and yeah, it's great to hop on this to catch up ahead of the games.
Wonderful. And yeah, I love to be able to come back and speak with other athletes and just kind of be a part of the Olympic spirit. My adrenaline gets going a little bit. So I'm super excited to be here and speak with you. So we've
Yeah,
got some
and are you?
questions. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, are you out in Eugene now for the U.S. trials?
I am. I'm here to watch my wife make her bid for her third Olympics to match the household record of three Olympic Games. So she kicks off in just a few hours for the qualifying round, and the final is coming up on Sunday. So exciting times.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the anticipation's definitely building watching all that stuff. So it's getting real.
Wonderful. But yeah, we'll ask a few questions. We'll have a little bit of fun with this thing. Really excited to hear some of your answers. So I want to start with this one. So the emotions of learning that you're going to the Olympics. I remember what it was like for me. I remember that moment, and I'm just wondering, kind of, if you could describe your emotions when you discovered that you had received that qualification spot for the games. Kind of like, who was the first person that you called? Because I remember for me, it was my coach, my college coach. I was just like yelling on the phone, pinning like $5 a minute because I was in Europe. But interested to hear how that is for you.
Yeah, it was sort of an interesting day. It was about a month ago in May, and I was just in the gym working out in the morning before going to swimming. And the way it works in triathlon is there's an Olympic simulation that pretty much gets updated every week, Monday morning. And I knew that this was going to be the last Monday that the simulation would be updated, but for the spot that I was awarded or qualified for, the tripartite spot, I was thinking that was actually going to be decided later, like a few weeks later into June. So I was just in the gym, like I wasn't really paying much attention to it. I knew that some countries would be figuring out their qualified athletes that day, but I figured that I would still be waiting a few more weeks. And then yeah, my parents were actually the first people to message me, and they're like, "Have you seen the updated simulation?" And I was like, "Nah." And then all of a sudden, it was just like a wave of messages and phone calls. And yeah, I was in the gym and I had like a 45-minute kind of mobility session to do to start off the week. And it took me about 2 hours to get it done because like in
Yeah.
between every exercise, I was like replying to texts, like refreshing the page, like, wait, is this right? And then the people from World Triathlon messaged me. I got an email from the Bermuda Olympic Association. And then next thing I know, it's like, yeah, the Bermuda Olympic Association's asking me to collaborate on their Instagram posts, and I'm like, okay, I guess this must be real, you know?
That's
Um,
amazing. That's
because
amazing.
yeah, I guess going into it, I knew there was only two spots available, and you had to be ranked within the top 180 of triathletes worldwide, and of the eligible countries for that spot, which are typically small nations that had less than 8 people at their previous two making up their previous two Olympic delegations, there was only two of us that were eligible. But that didn't mean that they had to award those spots. Like in the
Mm.
women's, they didn't award a second spot. It just rolled down. So there was, yeah, it could have gone either way, and it probably took about a week for the emotions to like settle. And I mean, they still haven't settled. Like, the fact that I'm going to the Olympics is still pretty wild to me. But yeah, I think I've wrapped my head around it a bit more, and now it's just kind of all focus is on the task at hand.
That's awesome. It's interesting. You got kind of a pleasant surprise because you were waiting. You thought you'd have to wait a little bit longer, and then it just came in, and then you got the outpouring of support. The social media aspect is interesting because my first Olympics, 2008. I mean, social media was a thing that was like MySpace and Facebook, but we didn't have Instagram yet, or
Yeah.
Twitter or any of those things. So I can imagine like the extra attention that comes from having social media, which has got to be really really cool to get your friends pinging in and stuff. So.
You trained in like a really high performance training group, and when you're surrounded by people that not just go to the Olympics, but they get medals at the Olympics, it almost becomes normalized to an extent, and you almost forget how big of a deal it is. But the cool thing about social media is that it allows you to keep in contact with people from your entire life. So like school friends, like former teachers, you know, people that you trained with 10, 15 years ago when you're like a kid, and they're able to reach out to you and congratulate you on it. And it's like, then you realize, wow, this is a big deal when you're chatting to people that you haven't really spoken to in years, but you know, it's grabbed their attention, and they're giving you all their support. And yeah, I mean, social media has its pros and cons, but being able to get that sort of support and love from you know, all the people that have actually really played a role in me getting here is definitely one of the best things that I've seen come from it.
Hold on to those memories, man. I can tell you that, years away removed now from my last Olympic experience, like those are some of the things I cherish the most is that support from friends and family and, just the whole movement and getting support from the country as well, from the nation. So um, you had mentioned your parents were kind of the first ones to tell you and to see the updated results for the simulator. And your mom, Karen, is a top triathlete as well in her own right. So how big of a role has she played in your journey to become an Olympian and be a triathlete, and how has she inspired you, or how's that? Because for me, I didn't really have a big sporting family, so I was kind of like
Yeah.
walking my own path. I'm really interested to hear how it worked for you.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think it just comes down to being exposed to the sport from such a young age, which you know, for most people, I think that are elite, if you speak to them, it's you need to have that kind of exposure at a young age. And I think that's why it's pretty important that we really make an investment into youth sport, because you know, you don't just get sort of athletes that can compete on a global international stage unless they've done the sport as youngsters. And I think in Bermuda we have like a pretty rich triathlon sort of community. There's a lot of important people that you know, have played a big role in growing that over the last like 20, 30, 40 years, however long it's been going. And yeah, I was lucky enough that my mom, my dad actually also did triathlon early on, but he kind of stopped a little bit earlier than my mom. You know, she kept on going after me and my sister were born, and she went to two Commonwealth Games herself, which is a big achievement. And then she went on to do a lot of just like age group, non-professional racing, even winning like the Hawaii Ironman for her age group. So very lucky to have been brought up in a family that, you know, I think not just triathlon, but have a value for sport and the positive things that it can have on a, you know, a young person's life. So it's been great to always have their support. And I mean, to this day, they still play a pretty big role in helping me, you know, make decisions around races, and yeah, kind of formulating plans for maybe what's the best pathway for me to get to the Olympics, or yeah, what are some things that, you know, I can do to improve. And you know, I have my coach and my physiotherapist and sort of people that are fully invested in the sport and understand the elite side a little bit better. But yeah, it's nice to have parents that also understand kind of the basics of the sport, and mainly what it is that I do. You know, it's kind of hard to explain to people. Like, they're like, do you just do a triathlon every day? And I'm like, no, like, you gotta go to the pool, you go on the bike, you go train, and then the rest of the day you're recovering. And yeah, to have a family that that come along with it is super valuable.
That sounds awesome. That having that, I try to be that for my wife in her sporting career now, having been there, and I can offer advice and help navigate difficult decisions. So that's really cool to hear that you've had that, and that kind of ties into another thing I was wondering about, which is, for me, I remember watching the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta and watching Michael Johnson with his gold shoes, and then in 2004, I remember watching 2000 with like Kathy Freeman in track and field, and the torpedo, Ian Thorpe from Australia in swimming. And but in 2004, when I watched Dwight Phillips win the long jump, I was like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to be there. And at that point, I was
Yeah.
pretty early in my personal career of long jumping. And I was just wondering, for you, when did you first dream about like the Olympics? Because obviously there's a lot with the triathlon. You have a professional circuit, you have the Ironmans, and now you've got the Olympics as well. when did you first dream about being an Olympian?
Well, it's kind of interesting. Like I would say my first dreams about being an Olympian, or the first Olympics that I remember the most, is 2008 Beijing. So I was 10 at the time, and I mean, in my eyes, like I don't know if it would have been the same if you had been watching previous Olympics before that, if you can remember. I mean, during Athens, I would have only been 5 or 6, but Beijing, it just seemed like the craziest thing, and I think they did kind of level it up. Like that opening ceremony was insane. I don't know if that's ever been matched. Then you had like the two kind of greatest Olympians of the last half century, with Usain Bolt and Michael Phelps, that both had breakout Olympics at that one, and it was just, yeah, it was
And
just
also the
incredible to
athletes,
watch.
we didn't even get to see that drum, that whole opening ceremony because we were like
Yeah,
marching in
the
from a
drum. Yeah,
mile
you
away,
got.
so we didn't even get to see that.
Yeah, yeah, that's the craziest thing, and I think that's one of the things that you realize once you become an athlete is like they have these crazy opening ceremonies, and you're just in like a car park somewhere waiting to waiting to get marched out into the stadium. And yeah, you don't really realize that. Yeah, you're on a bus for a couple of like. Yeah, it's so funny to see the behind the scenes. But I mean, Beijing was huge, and then actually when London came, we were in Europe during, like, me and my family, we had a vacation in Europe. My mom did a race there, but we combined it with like also going to see the London games, and we actually got to see the triathlon live.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
there was a ton of Bermudians in Hyde Park, and that was like just incredible. We had Tyler and Flora both racing. It was my first time to Europe, and like you had not only them, you had like the Brownlee brothers racing, which was just this
Yep.
crazy like spectators on the course. They were kind of poster boys for the games. And kind of the funny story from that one is like Flora hit a speed bump, and I happened to be standing right there, and one of her water bottles went flying. And I like sprinted across the road to go grab it and pick it up. And I was like, I think I still have it in my house, but
That's
I
amazing.
I
That's a
guess
great story.
yeah, at the time just such a fan, and then I would never think like 12 years later like I'll be, you know, training with her every day. So yeah, it's
That's
pretty cool.
amazing.
It kind of comes full
I actually have a
circle, but yeah, I
similar.
think
I didn't mean to cut you off. This is your story. Go ahead.
no, no, no. Go ahead, go ahead.
I was just going to say I have a similar story. I mentioned how I watched Dwight Phillips win the men's long jump in 2004. And in 2008, I was training with him like 4 years later to make my first Olympics team
Yeah,
in 2007. So I know exactly what you're talking about, which is just like surreal from going from asking from an autograph to like getting on the line and running sprints together.
yeah. I guess in terms of, I actually studied, like I went to university in Leeds, which is where Johnny and Alistair were based out of at the time. So that was also like very surreal. And again, it was kind of that 4 year, 2012. I was watching them, and then yet when I was trying to make a decision about where to go to study, in Bermuda, we have to go overseas. We have British citizenship, so it's like go to the UK. Okay, we're in the UK. Well, I might as well go to where the best
Yeah,
triathletes are. And yeah, it's crazy. Again, it's down to exposure, and I was really fortunate to be able to go see an event like London 2012 live, and really yeah, get inspired by it. And yeah, it's something I don't take for granted.
that's amazing. That's an amazing experience. I'm so glad you got that, and I'm sure it helped, as you mentioned, inspire you to today. Um, which is like you mentioned, floor hitting a speed bump, and I thought about like superstitions and things I used to have when I was going to compete. Do you have any superstitions? Hopefully, you don't let them have too much power, but we all have kind of those little things. Any competition superstitions for you?
Geez, I not really. I'm a little boring with that sort of stuff. I mean, I
That's
think
the
the thing with
perfect answer.
triathlon is there's so, yeah, there's so much out of your control that, like, you're controlling the controllables, but whether I tie my left lace first or whatever when I get out of bed, I think you just have to accept like this stuff isn't going to make a difference. 70% of
Yep.
this race is outside of my control. You're diving in with 55 guys that are going to just start smacking you upside the head, and like you're on the bike. It's just mayhem for 2 hours. All you can do is give your best. So I think like I don't think many
100%.
triathletes are have superstitious. Like I know like with jumpers, it's you're going through that ritual every time you kind of
Mhm.
are are lining up, and you know, uh, yeah, I think when the event becomes so long, you're just like, there's
Yep.
so much, there's a lot of this that's out of my hands, you know.
I
Yeah,
actually really like that approach because superstitions give sometimes they have too much power for athletes, and there's nothing wrong with having a ritual, but you don't want to have a superstition necessarily,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, in terms of pre-race meal, like what I'm doing before the race, in terms of warm up, like that's all the same.
Mhm.
That's not crossing into the realm of superstition. I think it's all quite logical stuff. Not nothing that's like, you know, I gotta, I don't even know what people do. I gotta race with the same water bottle that I used when I was 13 years old and
Well,
won Iron
like
Kids. You know, it's like,
like Michael Jordan said, he always wore the same like half tights under his shorts, but that just sounds nasty. Under for every game. Well, what about music? Do you listen to any
yeah, no,
particular
no, no.
kinds of music? um,
Yeah, music. Oh, it changes. I mean, in Paris we might be yeah, I don't know, play some of the French rap and stuff like that. You know, you go through, I used to race on like a French Grand Prix team. So you kind of get exposed to that sort of music. Is pretty funny. But yeah, no, it's a pretty varied playlist. Yeah, it depends. Sometimes you need something to hype you up, and sometimes you actually need something to just like bring you back down a little bit. So you kind of have to see what it's like on the day.
Totally makes sense. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Sometimes I was listening to something chill. Sometimes I needed to watch like a stand-up comedy before I went out and warmed up just to like laugh and forget about,
Yeah,
everything. So it's just kind of situation dependent. So I
yeah.
mean, as a triathlete, you've got a lot of stuff to pack, right? You've got a bike, you've got helmets, you've got different shoes, you've got like three different kinds of shoes. Like, what's the most unusual thing that you will pack, whether it's a personal item or a competition item? What's something like if people see it other than the bike, that they'll be like, "What the heck? Why'd
Uh,
you pack that?"
this is actually an easy one, and you get stopped like every time through security. But those massage guns, you know, like
Oh yeah,
like a
the
Theragun.
Thera. Yeah,
I've never got sent, like, made it through airport security without having to take that out of a bag, and people like, what the heck is this? And you're like, oh, it's a massage, and you're like trying to explain it in different languages, like massage, massage. They're like,
yeah.
what? Yeah, it's a lot of stuff to pack because yeah, you pack like that. Maybe like a pair of like I don't have not Normatex, but like a similar sort of compression boot
Hmm.
system. I guess with triathletes, it's very common to pack like your own rice cooker. So that's something like a lot of us
Okay.
bring, is like I'll bring to most races that I go to just a rice cooker because um, pre-race you just want like plain rice.
Mm.
And if you go to a restaurant, it's like they're giving you plain rice, but it's like mixed in with oils and carrots and peas and stuff like that. So a lot of triathletes will just travel with a rice cooker. So wherever you are in a hotel, you can plug it in, get your plain
That's
white rice, and
smart.
just get a good carb hit. Um, Apart from that, yeah, the bike, that's always a bit of a hassle to travel with. Um, yeah, there's a lot of
You should
stuff,
try
man. I'm
traveling with
so
pole vaulting
envious of
poles.
yeah. I mean, that's crazy, and I'm sure it's the same with your wife. But when you go somewhere, you're just looking out the airplane window like, oh, I don't. You're looking with one eye shut because the way these
Yep.
guys throw around equipment.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. That's interesting, the rice cooker. Yeah, making sure that you have the right nutrition available for you, so that you can be at your best. That might be up there, a rice cooker. I'm gonna have to ask social media about that one.
Yeah, rice cooker. Yeah, definitely not one you can take in the carry-on.
Right.
But yeah.
I used to get extra security screening because of my tape measure because it looked weird on like X-rays. So
Oh, right. Yeah. And I guess like they're always fine with you bringing spikes as carry-on
yeah,
and things like
yeah,
that, right? Yeah.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
not usually an issue.
Um, yeah.
Um,
No, I'm
so
envious of the track. Just being
yeah,
able to put a pair of spikes in a backpack and take off. But yeah.
so I know you're training. Your schedule is super busy. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. But I had a couple quick questions. I think that are really important to the community for the rest of us in Bermuda. First, The support of the community in Bermuda. What does that mean for you? How have you internalized that, or how have you felt that? And talk a little about that, and maybe some of the kids that you've been able to speak to in your journey.
Yeah, I mean, it's for me, the support of the community is everything, and it's why, not to say that I feel like a ton of pressure, but um, that's that's kind of who I'm representing, who I feel like I'm representing in Paris, right? All the people that have invested their time, their energy, and their support into me over the years. So yeah, it's not to say that, I'm not saying like I feel crazy pressure, but it's definitely something that I want to make these people proud. And yeah, I mean, there's so many volunteer coaches, um, race organizers, sort of, if you think about all our associations, they're basically run by volunteers, which
Yeah,
when you compare it to, I'm sure you've seen the US Olympic Committee training center or whatever, where it's, these people are all paid for it. But I think it means something different when it's like you are the product of people that, you know, in expecting nothing in return, gave up hours and hours of their time to coach you. And for me, in cycling, swimming, and running. And I'm really fortunate that in Bermuda, like a lot of my coaches that coached me when I'm young, I still have contact with, and I can still ask them for assistance with stuff. So like when I was back this winter, I'm still working on technique with the swim coach that I had when I was young. And that's super useful. And I also think it's pretty unique to Bermuda. Um, and then on the flip side, and in addition to sort of paying back the people that invested in me, I also want to have a role in kind of inspiring this next generation that we see coming through to kind of take up maybe not just triathlon but sport in general. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to make a career out of it, but taking that up, as I said before, I think it has such a positive impact in the lives of young people, and it can open so many opportunities and doors that you never would have thought possible.
absolutely. Well, let me just say that, we are all already proud of you. It's a huge accomplishment to make it to the games. I do have expectations that this will not be your only Olympic Games. I'm looking forward to seeing a long career for you, and focus on just doing your best. I know you're going to hear that a lot, but some people go to the games and kind of lose perspective. There's the village, and there's the food, and there's the activities that they have, and all of these things. But just focused on doing what you've done for the last 4 years of preparation, and you're going to be great. But we are all already proud of you, man.
It's appreciated. And yeah, another funny one. I was actually just thinking, I think one of I recall pretty vividly you and Flora actually giving out awards at a triathlon. I think it
Yep,
was like the Tokyo
yep.
Millennium Triathlon, maybe 6 or 8 years ago, and I definitely still have that photo. So yeah, again, it's cool that in Bermuda, athletes like yourself and Flora, and I mean hopefully myself in the future, like we stay in the community, and we don't just, when we hang up our spikes or whatever I hang up, swimming goggles, helmet, and shoes, it's like you're still active, and you're still playing a role. And I think that's super important. And it was crazy because I was having this conversation with someone, like Bermuda, you don't realize how high the concentration of Olympic athletes that we have is for a country of 60,000 people. And the fact that, like, I grew up knowing maybe 20, 30 people that went to the Olympics. And if you talk to someone from the US, from a city of like, or a town of 60,000, no one in that town's been to the Olympics. And if they have, they left the town and never came back. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
the fact that we have people that get that experience come back to Bermuda, it's something that's very unique, and a legacy that I hope to continue after all this is done.
Well, I feel like the sport and Bermuda sport in general are in great hands. So looking forward for the future of you carrying this torch. And last question, I gotta ask it. Cup match is coming up. So
St. George's.
Somerset or so. Okay, all right.
Unfortunately. Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
that's
representing
amazing.
St. George's. Yeah, it's the day. I guess it's the day after our race. I was like, oh, do I come back for cup match? That could be a nice way to celebrate. But I think there'll be other cup matches. But yeah, the chance to hang out in Paris and watch the rest of the Olympics is a bit too yeah. I mean,
Yeah, you've got to take that
that's
opportunity.
a once in a lifetime opportunity. So yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, this has been awesome speaking with you, Tyler.
I hope you're blue.
Really
That
excited
yeah.
for you. Really excited for you. I know you're going to do us proud. You already have. Good luck. Hit some personal bests out there and just keep punching.